Call to order the regular meeting of the Rio Dell City Council. Roll call, please.
Mayor Garnes.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Woodall.
Here.
Councilmember Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Strand.
Here.
Councilmember Wilson.
Here.
Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is the time for persons who wish to address the council on any matter not on this agenda and over which the council has jurisdiction. As such, a dialogue with council and staff is not intended. Items requiring council action not listed on this agenda may be placed on the next regular agenda for consideration if the council directs, unless a finding is made by at least 2/3 of the council that the item came up after the agenda was posted and is of an urgency nature requiring immediate action. Please limit comments to 3 minutes.
I'm Renata Laughlin, 570 Gunderson Avenue, and I'm just excited about the possibility of having a dog park. And I looked at the parcel today, and I think one of the ones that was identified at Center in Ireland, I think it would be a good start, and I'm willing to lend support. One thing I would like to say is that if there could be some parallel parking, it might help for our out-of-town guests if they were to, have a place where if they're driving a motorhome or something like that, assuming that the fence didn't come all the way out to the road. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Would anyone else? Welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name is Sean DeVries. Nice to meet you all. I'm a candidate for supervisor here in District 2. Wanted to introduce myself and just speak briefly on a couple of points. One, I think our economy is definitely having a bit of a problem due to the county's mishandling of cannabis permits. I'm happy to say you guys have really embraced it here, and I applaud you for those efforts. I think that there are some things that we can do to boost the local economy with cannabis, opening up the amnesty program and allowing equity applicants in, and just really helping people transition from the black market to the white market here. Also, I want to applaud everyone here for taking a strong stand against Terragen. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that we're going to cut the top off of a mountainside and defile spiritual and holy land in exchange for roughly 40% of what we might need at a slightly below market rate. It seems kind of like cutting off our nose to spite our face. And the last thing, on the Terragen point, I think we could take the time to invest in our local microgrids and bolster up the local grid here so that we're not subject to PG&E shutting things off. And the last thing, just a quick call to action, guys. There's a group of people in Fortuna who, much like yourselves, are very against this Terragen project. And so if the council sees wisdom in it, perhaps they'd be willing to proclaim publicly a day of looking at the hillside that we're about to lose, possibly. I think this will help bring attention to the public and attention to the environmental impact in a way that maybe isn't happening right now. And so if you were so bold as to make this proclamation, I believe that other cities and towns and perhaps areas of the county would join you, and that together we can stop this project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else care to say anything?
Rick Pellerin. I want to congratulate Sean for his stepping forward and running against a supervisor who seems to have sold us out for the wind farm corporation outfit. And we in the Rio Dell senior exercise group, we're usually just a buzz before our workout. We sit around a table and we discuss some of these matters, and all of us are voters, and so we're really excited about this next election, because there's just no sense in having people in there who won't represent our interests. And it looks like this young man is, so we're going to be taking a look at him, giving him a chance.
Thank you.
Susan Nessen, 40-year resident of Rio Dell, my hometown. I love it. I want to publicly thank Kyle for standing up for Rio Dell at the Planning Commission. Thank you, Kyle. Good man. 40 years. I'm getting too old to take care of my property. My son and I are going to swap houses. I'm really concerned about this Terrigen thing because I don't know a lot of scientific stuff, but I keep on reading that it causes health problems. I think that's something that we as a city should really look into whether that thing up 5 miles from us is going to cause us health problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to say anything? Make a comment? Seeing none, I will close public comment and move on to the consent calendar. Would anyone from the council like to remove anything from the consent calendar?
I'd like to remove number 5.
Okay. Anyone else? Would anyone, I'm sorry.
On number 3, I'm not really that I want to pull it, but I've asked some further questions, and maybe we could delay that for another meeting.
Okay, I don't know how that works, but Kyle, I'm sure will tell me.
Do we need to approve it tonight, Kyle?
I would go ahead and pull it, and then you can have that conversation about continuing it to the next meeting.
I can make a motion to table it.
Okay. So pull 3, please.
3 and 5, thank you. And would anyone from the public like to pull anything from the consent calendar? Seeing none, we'll pull 3 and 5, and I'll ask for a motion to accept items 1, 2, 3, no, 1, 2, 5, 4, 1, 2, 4, and 6.
I so
And
move.
And 7.
That's
And, oh, there's a 7, and 7. Remote, and we have a second. We have a vote, please. So moved, we will now go to item 3.
So, yeah, I've just asked our finance director if she could just get me some additional numbers. So, and I've already spoken directly with her. So I'd just like to pull it and then have discussion next time after I see those numbers.
Is there consensus for that?
Yes.
Okay, then we will, I don't need to do a motion. Consensus is good, or,
I guess technically you should.
Make a motion?
You should make a motion.
okay.
Motion to table it.
I'd like to make a motion to table 3 till next meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All of them. That motion carries 5-0. And now item 5.
I would just like to abstain from voting on it, and so I didn't want to vote on the whole thing, so I'm abstaining from voting on it.
Oh. Okay.
I do have a question on 5 also. So, I mean, staff, you've approved it in this writing. This covers us for, I thought there wasn't going to be any talk about the pole, just decorations.
My understanding of what the council said was that they would include the pole as reimbursable in the total amount.
That was not my understanding, so that's the only
I don't know that that was
confusion that I
actually my
have.
understanding either.
So
It got really, actually,
the amount
it got
was
really,
increased from 1,500 to 35.
right.
And in the discussion, the council authorized for it to be, for reimbursement for polls to be a part of the total amount. So if you'd like to continue the item, we can go back through and just double check that and bring it back on December 3rd meeting.
I thought we approved it.
I thought
What
we
did we approve? I thought we approved it.
with the poll.
Wasn't clear on how that was worked out with the poll.
That's the problem. I think none of us are, actually got very
Yeah.
muddy in there, and we were,
Because weren't we
Back and
concerned
forth.
about city liability and the pole? Wasn't that the whole discussion?
Yeah, there wouldn't be any city liability, but what we can do is bring it back for the next meeting and just continue this to the next, December 3rd meeting.
Well, will there be clarification, or will we just like walk away and then come back with the exact same thing? I mean, do we need to have a discussion about it? Because I just mean pulling it will not, and bringing it back next meeting won't accomplish anything but the exact same place we were in right now. So is there,
I could listen to the tape if you'd like.
oh, okay. Oh, okay. Well, that'd be brilliant. Okay. Well, then, City Clerk will listen and clarify what we agreed on, because clearly we don't have a absolute clear memory, and we'll come back and bring it back then. Okay. Do I have a motion for that, please, to bring it back?
I make a motion that we move this to the next meeting.
Is there a second?
Well, we can second it, but I just have a clarification on it. What is, on back to the minutes.
That's what I was looking at. Staff and council.
Page 5.
To be reused. On page 6, either in the third paragraph from the bottom, city manager not commented that staff would return to council with a resolution approving the budget amendment authorizing the funds to be used as reimbursement for the poll, where the city council would deem the use of funds as public benefit for the general public, since the light pole does not really fall into the category of holiday decorations. So then, this,
Which is exactly was my understanding, that we're paying for the holiday decorations and not the pole.
So if that's the case, we can easily strike the poll from the resolution, and then functionally all you've done is really just increase the allocation. That's fine. And then just for clarification, staff's interpretation of decorations does not include a poll. So if that's what so the council can give that clear direction right now to go ahead and continue with the resolution, but strike. Sorry, my mic is off. If that's what the council wants to do, you can go ahead and authorize the mayor to sign the resolution, provided that the poll is stricken from the resolution.
That's, reading the minutes, that's why I understand as well. Just decorations and they were gonna deal with the poll separate.
so do I have consensus that we strike the poll from the resolution? Is there a motion for that?
But
That we accept the item with the removal of the poll, or with the poll being stricken from the,
But the amount stays the same.
but the amount stays the same.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Did we get a second on the one I just made? No?
I believe.
Did you make a second and then you?
So I want to, I'll
It was a
withdraw.
sort of.
I'll withdraw the previous motion, make a motion that on the mending the fiscal budget for the Chamber of Commerce and the increase of the $2,000, that we strike the word "and the poll" from this document and approve it.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, and having a motion to second, I would like, that will open up kind of a discussion. It seems a little disingenuous because we all know, I feel like it's going for the poll. We've had this discussion. It's a very uncomfortable thing, and $3,500 is a lot for Christmas decorations. I mean, we should never need another decoration for the remainder of Rio Dell if we spend $3,500 after we spent $1,500 last year on decorations. So for the $3,500, it makes more sense for the poll, but I don't know if I'm the only one who feels like this, but it just is uncomfortable for me. But we have a motion in a second. I just needed to put that out there. Does the public have any input that they want to input? Seeing none, hearing none. We have a motion and a second. We have a vote. voting twice. I hate that.
I abstained.
The motion is carried 3-1 with one abstention. The dissent is Mayor Garnes, and the abstention is Councilmember Woodall. And now we will move on to
Let's look at it.
Bear with me. Here we are. City manager reports.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. This item is on page 37 of your report. As mentioned previously, staff was able to attend 2 of the Humboldt County Planning Commission meetings on the Terrigen Wind Energy Project and review most of the final EIR and changes to the comments on the final EIR related to Rio Dell. We were able to arrange and attend a meeting with Mayor Garnes and the Wiyot tribe up on Bear River Ridge, which was very educational and interesting. We've had discussions over with state parks about potential grant opportunities. And then our ATP project bid is currently delayed. We're trying to bring it back for the December 3rd council meeting. And also the census is still hiring, so if you know somebody who would be good at that and needs a job or an additional job, they have pretty variable hours, is my understanding, to be pretty flexible. So the census is currently hiring, and you can basically just go to their website to make those applications and get in the process for that. But the census is interested in partnering with the city on certain areas in terms of us exchanging information with the census on how to communicate with the community and key players in the community. So we've been working with them on that. With that, also we do expect road work to begin tomorrow on Bellevue Avenue. We don't anticipate it to last longer than Thursday, but might possibly go into Friday. So that was the preparatory work for the ATP project on Bellevue Avenue. With that, unless there's any other questions, I'll turn it back to the council.
I didn't get a chance to attend the planning commission at an HWMA meeting, but I got home in time to catch the final comments, and city manager Knopp, I thought, did an excellent job in his presentation representing the council's view and the city as a whole, and I wish to thank you for that.
I think we might all agree with that. You did a great
Yes.
job. I appreciate it. I couldn't be there because I had foot surgery. I appreciate you standing up, and you did a good job. Great job.
Great job.
Thank you.
I'd like to also say I went to an IHSS meeting that they had at the fire hall, which is in-home supportive services through the county. And they're also hiring, this program is part of the DANCO in-home services providing. So you can, that's also an opportunity for local people. There was about 6 people from Rio Dell who were interested in that.
Nice. Thank you.
I also had a question, one other question about over across the river. So what's happening? Are they extending a water line over there?
No, they're doing a utility PG&E access.
To get the electricity run. They're
Under the ground?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Does anyone else have a question for staff? Does anyone in the public have a question for staff? Seeing none, we will move on from staff reports. The first item, discussion of the police department's code enforcement efforts.
Mayor Garnes, members of the City Council, on the October 1st meeting, Mayor Pro Tem Woodall requested that an item be placed on the agenda to discuss the city's code enforcement efforts. In that regard, there were some absentees from the previous two City Council meetings, so it was scheduled for today. I'm here to answer any questions you might have. Attached to the report is a list of the current open cases and a list of the cases that have been closed in the last year. However, I would try and remind you that the City Council's position is more to provide broad strategic direction as opposed to individual cases. I believe a better place to go into particulars would be the nuisance committee meeting, which will be held tomorrow. But if you have questions about what we're doing and why, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Oh, I just wanted an overview of how you felt things were going. And just at this point, you know, after 6 months, you're right about we can give, you know, talk about it at tomorrow's meeting, but I just...
Well, the first year I was here, I was having a hard time keeping people working here, so I didn't have a whole lot of time to concentrate on code enforcement. We still managed to do 2 abatements. Currently, we have 2 properties that we may begin abatements on, weather pending, next month. One on Pacific, one on Monument. We will, when those are completed, we will look for other places that need the majority of our attention. We've also done some work with Comcate, as I've mentioned in the, and for those who don't know, Comcate is our cloud-based case management system for code enforcement. Been able to spend some time and have been able to create forms that with a couple clicks of a button, you can spit out 2 forms in code enforcement and some forms for vehicle abatement, and those just save time. So if we want to send a letter to 10 property owners, you click the mouse 10 times, you get 10 letters, you print out the envelopes, and away they go. And the first one is notice of violation. It's, we hear there's a problem on your property, we'd like you to clean it up. If you don't think there's a problem, feel free to give us a call. Somebody's going to come by and take a look in a couple of weeks. If it's gone, great. If not, we'll chat with you a little bit more. And then I just recently put in the administrative citation form into the system so that, again, with a couple clicks of a button, we'll be able to generate an administrative citation. We can hand deliver those or send them via certified mail. Another, when people haven't maybe got the gist from the first couple of notices they may have gotten, maybe this one will get their attention, maybe not, but that's the goal anyway. So that's kind of what's been going on in the last 6 months or so. We continue to tow cars on a pretty regular basis, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 4 a month. Officer Fielder, who I'm not sure if you've all met, he's a retired Caltrans engineer who put himself through the academy at the ripe age of 64. He and I work together at the county doing code enforcement, and he works 1 day a week, 10 hours, and he spends probably a third to half his time helping me with code enforcement stuff, at least right now. So if there's any other questions, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
No, the only reason I had asked to have you present it was because there's 2 of us on the, so just so everybody got a chance to hear.
Any other questions? Anyone in the
Thank
public
you.
have a question about code of, I'm sorry.
Chief, do you need more resources to dig more deeply into code enforcement? Manpower.
Well, in the short run, I would say no. In the long run, I would say yes. The problem with new resources is there are no trained code enforcement people that we can poach from somebody else and immediately put them to work. So in the short run, when you add human resources, it's actually a drain because you have to spend time training them until they become functional. If the city's intention is to make code enforcement a major priority, then that time investment would be worthwhile. And I would say that a part-time person who did code enforcement, and if you really want to go there, I think there's, I don't know about on the council, but in the public's view, a need for an animal control officer. And so somebody who did both code enforcement and animal control might be something that the city might want to look at in the next budget year. The other advantage with that is if this person also wanted to be a police officer, we could evaluate their work ethic and you know, the other things that we would want to look at, and possibly the next time we have an opening for a police officer, pay to have them attend academy. So we could kind of use it as a apprentice position for those who wanted to be a police officer, but we're not sure, you know, it would be a way to see before we took the gamble of putting them through the academy, which I believe at some point in the not too distant future we're going to have to really consider, as the demand for police officers is super high throughout the state.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone in the public like to address this?
In looking at the list
Oh,
that we
could
have,
you, I'm sorry, could you come up to the microphone because we're... Me too.
Renata Laughlin,
Thank you.
570 Gunderson Lane. In looking at the list on the abatement or properties that you've made contacts with, there's some checks, and then there's one or two that have an X. Are those the ones that have been closed? Or that's
No,
just-
that is, so the program uses Google Earth or Google Maps, I believe, to validate properties.
Okay.
And so what the checks is an X, and if I could get rid of that, I would, but that's not something you can
So that
deselect.
all of them are open then?
So all of there's two lists, and if you look at the very top of the first page, it'll tell you which one's which. The first list, the long one, is the open cases. The second one is the cases that were closed. The checks just means whether or not Google Maps can validate that property or not.
That was the only question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, we'll close that item. And our next item is the discussion on syringe exchange program. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Garnes, members of the council. This item is on page 46 of your packet. As the council may recall, there was items back from December of 2018 that covered this topic. So we did just bring that item and the material with it into this agenda item. We also attached the City of Fortuna ordinance on the syringe exchange programs that Councilmember Woodall had distributed to the council. And we also have the minutes from the December 4th, 2018 City Council meeting in the packet, and then the correspondence that resulted from the action in that particular meeting. So if you look quickly at page 51 of your packet, that would be the last agenda item on this particular topic. And ultimately, out of the menu of items or options that the council had to choose from, the council opted for item number 3, to take action on item number 3, which was to issue a position statement and issue an advisory letter or resolution to the state and other parties expressing the city's position on syringe exchange programs being authorized or active in Rio Dell. And then those letters are towards the back. And the position that the council had agreed to at the time was to oppose their placement or authorization in the city of Rio Dell. So those letters are on page 84 of your packet. So with this, I'll return it back to the council.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, the only reason I thought maybe we could take another look at it was because there were several reasons. One is they might put a new resource center in town. And I think the demographics of our population are kind of changing with some of the new things that are coming into town. And that I would like the idea that to know where the van could be, where it couldn't be when it comes into town. The fact that it would be a one-for-one exchange. And right now, we have had them in town across from the resource center. And right now, they've moved over to the other side of the bridge, so they're not in town. But I just thought, you know, that I would like, this is kind of proactive at looking at it and establishing it so that if they ever decide to come to town, we have something set up already. And that was my, just as one person, that's why I thought maybe we should look at it again.
Before we take any action, it appears that, just a couple statements, it appears that the needle exchange program saves lives. And I think we're all would applaud saving lives. But I would just like to hear from somebody in the, you know, in the medical field to tell us what is the extent of the problem here in Rio Dell? Because I don't know. If it's, you know, if it's a big enough problem that we need an exchange program, I think we need to pursue that. But I think, for me, the next step is get a pro in here to talk to us, to define what the problem is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm along the lines of Mr. Johnson. I don't know that to what extent. We know there's needles because we know the people are here, but whether or not they're going to exchange those for you, they're going to come forward and exchange them. Mr. Griffin was doing all the picking up in the medium, and we asked him at the one meeting if he had ever found any, and he claimed he had never picked up any, and he's out there every day.
I picked one up last week.
Did you pick one up?
And I found them in the parking lot down in the tennis courts.
I hear about them being in places on Neighborhood Watch. They talk about them, not so much streets, but tennis courts. One, there's other areas where they people the park, like if they're down at which is the tennis courts, down at the ballpark on that end there. So I know local citizens have expressed concern about seeing them out there. They have to be out there. So I would like to further understand how much of an issue it is, and then what's the liability of the city if we take that on. Yeah, my understanding is we can't stop it if they want to. If an agency wants to come do something, we can't stop them. It's not a bad idea to have some kind of a plan in place. If and what we asked for in the letter was that they would notify us if they were going to do that. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they have to. Is that correct, City Manager?
I'm sorry.
They don't have to notify us if they do it. We sent letters asking them if they would, if they were going to do something.
I'll clarify that. I would think that they would need to notify the local jurisdiction, and we did. It is on record. We did submit and specifically ask them to at least notify us. But strictly speaking, you know, probably it's something let me get clarification on.
Okay.
Well, I agree with Councilwoman Woodall that we need to be proactive, and with the changing profile of Rio Dell, that we just need to be proactive, and that having something in place. And I think that the City of Fortuna did a really good job in this, their ordinance that they passed. I don't see any problem with putting this into action into Rio Dell. And Mr. Johnson, thank you. I'm just calling him Gordon. In the minutes from before, you had said in your walking and running that you had witnessed needles around the last time. So, I mean, they are out there.
Thank you.
Maybe can ask the chief what he's seen as far as needles around town, or
So we're asked to pick up needles 2 to 4 times a month maybe, and it's usually 1 or 2. Where we collect the majority of them though are out of people's cars or out of people's houses pursuant to some kind of search. We probably collect 10 to 1 in that manner as opposed to finding them on the ground. And curiously, and I have no idea why, as I ride my bicycle to and from Rio Dell to Eureka, I, with some frequency, see them on the side of the freeway, sometimes in great numbers. Like somebody took a box of syringes and spilled it on the shoulder, 30, 40, 50, 60 syringes in a couple of 100 yards. I have no idea why, but I see more on the freeway than I've seen in the city of Rio Dell by far.
Is there ever an issue down at the river? I mean, do you patrol down at the river often enough to see, or would you see?
We don't patrol the river bar very often.
Okay.
I did until my car developed problems from doing it, and so I don't go down there as often as I used to. I cannot recall, that doesn't mean that we haven't had it, but I can't recall a syringe on the river bar. I'm sure it's happened, I just can't remember it.
Okay, I just.
The places that are most common are the places you mentioned, the medians, the parks, around some of the stores, Dollar General and CNC in particular.
I was talking to the Mayor Pro Tem from Fortuna today, and she says it's drastically reduced the number of needles that they've found around town.
I will say when we did I was part of the river cleanup a few years back, 2 or 3 years back, and there were definitely needles at the river that we picked up.
Mayor Garnes, if I can go back to Councilmember Wilson's question, the State Department of Public Health did issue a letter authorizing SEPs in various locations throughout California. For Humboldt County, they specifically listed cities and locations. So one of them was Fortuna, Eureka, and I want to say Willow Creek, and maybe 1 or 2 other cities. So and I believe that's how both Eureka and Fortuna became aware of the program, was that they were copied on that letter. So as far as I know right now, there has been no needle exchange program authorized for Rio Dell. It's not to say that they are, but I don't know if they're required to send that notification or not.
And I would just like to say that I am all for proactively looking at the ordinance, but I do believe that we should have, and I did state this in December when it came up before, I do believe that we should have someone here and educate us before we just copy someone else's ordinance or make up an ordinance of our own without being fully informed. So I would agree with both council members Wilson and Johnson that we should have someone come in and talk to us about it, educate us on it. And I also agree that we should proactively address it, but only after we have been informed by someone who's actually in the field, who understands the issue better than we do, other than we see needles. So that's my position. Would the public care to weigh in? Anyone? Hearing no weigh in, I would then ask for a motion on maybe having someone here.
I'll make a motion that we don't look at this tonight. We have somebody come in and explain it to us and then make a decision.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All right, let me turn that one off, okay. Motion carries 5-0. Second, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say thank you.
Second reading by title only and adoption of ordinance number 377-2019, amending chapter 15.05, construction codes. Who is that?
Thank you,
87?
Mayor Garnes, members of the council. So again, this is just the standard update in the building codes for the city of Rio Dell. Every 3 years, the CBSC adopts building standards for the state of California, and a compilation of building regulations referred to as the California Building and Standards Codes. Through the code adoption process, the CBSC selects and approves a set of model codes. So we come back fairly regularly to the council to adopt the latest version of these codes. At your last meeting, there was the first reading of this particular item. And tonight we were talking about the final second reading and adoption of ordinance number 377-2019, which would amend chapter 15.05 related to construction codes and the Rio Dell Municipal Code. So what we would recommend the council do is go ahead and open the public hearing, see if there's any public comment, deliberate, and then move to adopt the attached ordinance change. Excuse me. My apologies.
Okay, thank you. So we will open this up. I would like to just say the change is changing everything from 2016 to 2019. That is the change. So anyone else would like to say anything? I just wanted everyone to know that we weren't changing text so much as just changing the year. Anyone?
No problem with that.
Anyone? Anyone in the public would like to make a comment? Hearing none, we'll bring it back. Is there a motion to accept the second reading?
Mayor Garnes, I would move that we adopt ordinance number 377-2019.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Motion carries 5-0. Which brings us to council reports.
When I attended, as I mentioned, HWMA meeting, that's why I didn't
Push it up.
go, part of why I didn't have electrical fascination. But I was able to catch the stuff on the public access. The other item that I bring up is that normally we have the RCEA as the fourth Thursday of the month. This time that would be Thanksgiving, so we're going to do it this Thursday. And there's an item that was requested to be on there by by the board chair to want to sign on to a letter with the, I don't know, there's several cities, put out 20 cities and a half a dozen supervisors to have PG&E placed onto become a publicly owned or a customer-owned utility versus an investor-owned utility. And so I've read the staff report. I don't know if it's something you could solve that quick in a 30-minute meeting or an hour conversation on the largest utility in the United States. However, just mention that it'll probably be an interesting dialogue. The meeting is at 3:30 Thursday afternoon, and it meets at the Humboldt Bay Water District building is where the meetings are. So if you're interested in hearing that dialogue, you're certainly welcome to come and participate.
Thank you.
I am, well, this Thursday I have an HCOG meeting, so I will not be able to go to the planning commission, but Julie said she was going to go, so. But those have been fantastic meetings to be at regarding Terrigen. And thank you to Gordon for filling in for me going up to Crescent City. Thank you.
You're welcome. I did go to Crescent City and attended the California Transportation Commission meeting, and the meeting was 3.5 hours long or something like that, and I was very impressed with the commissioners. They all seemed totally engaged the whole time. I mean, they were on the edge of their seats listening to every presenter, no matter how exciting or not exciting it was. Something to strive for, I guess, in my own life. But Marcella Clem, the executive director of HCOG, and I did kind of a tag team. I presented information about last chance grade, and she presented the rest of what's going on in the county and what needs to go on in the county. I will be going Thursday to HCOG and updating the board on last chance grade. So, thank you.
And I was gone for the last 2 weeks.
Your vacation was
Yes,
good?
yes.
Lovely. And I would like to say, well, I did say earlier that I didn't make it to the Planning Commission meeting on Thursday because I had foot surgery that morning, but I will be at this Thursday's Planning Commission meeting, and I'm going to say this really loudly so I make sure they get me on air. We need the citizens of Rio Dell to step up and come help the city council make this lift. This is not something we can do alone. This is not something I can stand there and make a presentation and make the point for everyone. We need as many citizens of Rio Dell as we can possibly get to show up at that Planning Commission meeting and make the point that this is not something that Rio Dell really wants to stand for at all. So that is all I have to say. Is there a motion for
Mayor Garnes, I'd move for adjournment.
a second?
Second?
Meeting adjourned.